This is the all-new 5th generation Canyon Ultimate, the lightweight all-rounder from the German brand. We're going to tell you everything that you need to know about it, how it's been improved from the previous version, weigh it to see if it's as light as they say it is, speak to Canyon's R&D project lead on the bike, do a free up sound check, and I've even brought along the previous version so that you can better see the differences.
Before we go any further, if you like seeing the latest bikes hot off the press, then make sure you like and subscribe so that you never miss them, because we upload them regularly. Right, the headlines of the new Ultimate. It's a disc brake only bike. It's designed to be an all-round racing machine, but it's focused more towards the climbing end of the spectrum, being very lightweight, and consequently it doesn't prioritise aero as much as the out-and-out aero bike in Canyon's range, the Canyon Aeroad. That said, Canyon reckon it's significantly more aero than the previous one, and that's thanks to a collaboration with the F1 aero guru's Swiss side. The claimed weight of the bike is pretty light though. This is said to be 6.2 kilograms. But I'm going to test it with the GCN scales of truth later on, and we'll see about that. The Ultimate has quite the pedigree. It first came out in 2007, and since then it's won monuments, world championships and grand tours. And as mentioned, this is the 5th generation, but it's fair to say that it's more of an evolution rather than a revolution over the previous model. Then incidentally, if you are a fan of Canyon bikes, then check out GCN Plus, because we've got an excellent documentary coming out on there that details the history of the brand. Visually, the biggest changes from the previous one, well, the paint job for a start. It's really quite nice. It's called CFR Stealth, it's matte black, but it's got these iridescent details and logos all over it that have a sort of chameleon tint that change colour depending on the light and the angle at which you view them. It's pretty smart. You've also got fully integrated cables now, big change. So the previous one, the cables were external here, now they're routed through the head tube. Really does tidy up the front end. The seat tube junction at the back here, that's also been revised. I'll go into a bit more detail later on. And you've also got aero features on the fork crown here. You can see this little line continuing there. That's something that we often see on aero bikes. The dropouts at the rear have been revised, and also the mounting point for the rear caliper is different too.
All in, the aero savings are said to be 10 watts at 45 kilometers an hour, which might be a lot or not much depending on your perspective. I consider that to be a lot, and it certainly helps close the gap from this bike towards a more dedicated aero bike. And to give it some context, what is 10 watts? Well, on my local 10-mile time trial course, or 16-kilometer course, that would equate for me to 13 seconds saved, which I consider to be significant. The aero refinement of the new bike was done using computational fluid dynamic studies and then getting Swiss side to verify this in the wind tunnel at Immenstadt. And a large proportion of the aero saving will come from the cockpit area, because you've hidden the cables and you've also got this new integrated one-piece bar, which is the same as found on the Aeroad, which also means that it's a quill design, so it's adjustable in its height, but also the ends can come off. You can adjust the width of the bar and take the ends off to make it more travel-friendly.
It's not just aero, Canyon has sought to improve comfort as well. And one of the things they've done is given the new bike a D-shaped seat post. The previous versions, you can see, had round ones. Now this is so that a D-shaped seat post, in theory, can deflect a bit more. But one of the other details is the clamping bolt. So the clamping bolt has always been a bit lower down in the frame here, and that's so that you've got a greater sort of angular moment. It means you've got a longer effective seat tube length so that it can deflect potentially more. But on the previous model, it was clamping from the rear here, but they've moved it 180 degrees, so it now clamps from the front. And the reason for that is because it means it no longer gets sort of dirt and wheel spray sort of spraying into it and potentially corroding it. I think it's a neat little idea. comfort has also been bolstered by wider tyre clearance so that you can fit bigger, comfier tyres. So it's up to now 32 millimetres claimed. And for reference, these are 25 millimetre Schwalbe Pro 1 TT tyres, and you can see there is loads of space in the fork crown and also at the back as well.
The geometry is now the same as the Canyon Air Road. It's kind of a case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it's also handy because Canyon say that their sponsored riders and teams have the choice of using either the Air Road or the Ultimate, depending on the terrain that they're facing. But now it means that the contact points on the bike are in the same place, so it's easier to switch between the two. And as we film this, you may have seen the likes of Jay Vine and Enric Mas in the Vuelta a España, who've been doing rather well on the new Ultimate. There is one tweak to the geometry though, and that's with regards to the chainstay length. So on size large and beyond, it actually gets slightly longer in the chainstay proportionally to that size of bike. I'm a big fan of lightweight bikes. And then, yes, you know, in most situations, an aero bike's going to be faster. And if I were racing, I'd absolutely always go for the aero bike. But I like doing lots of things when I cycle. But my absolute favourite thing is going to the mountains with a group of my mates, and then we'll ride in the valleys and chill out, stop at cafes, enjoy it. And then when we hit a massive, famous climb, we'll just smash up it, ripping each other's legs off, going as fast as we can. And in that instance, in that situation, the bike that's going to give me the edge is something like this. And when you have that sensation of a lightweight, stiff bike on a climb and feel how it can accelerate, it's just something that never gets old. But to find out more about the new Ultimate, who it's aimed at, and the design objectives behind it, I went to Koblenz and spoke to Canyon's R&D project lead, Lucas.
Lucas, as the R&D project lead, I've got to say, on the face of it, you've done a cracking job. It also looks unmistakably like an Ultimate. The silhouette is similar at first glance, since it's the old one. So what is different about this?
Yeah, you're right. It's more of an evolution than a revolution. But nonetheless, there is differences, and they are huge, but they're hard to spot.
Okay.
The most obvious is obviously the cable integration. So there's no external cables anymore. The old bike, you know, it's 7 years old, so it still has external cables. It rides beautifully, but, you know, we needed to put these cables inside. So that's what happened here.
And is that the same as the Aeroad cockpit then?
It is basically the same. It's the same concept. It's the same T-bar. It has the separation at the drop bars as well, so you can travel with it easily. You can adjust the width. We've done a little bit of a job of making it even more aerodynamic. So we've slimmed down the spacer stack and put a higher grade aluminum in the top cap. So we needed less material, and we're able to reduce its width. So it's definitely a lot more aerodynamic. And there's subtle differences on the inside, which you will never notice as a rider.
So have you gone after super lightweight with this one then?
We've not, actually. We've opted consciously not to do that.
Okay.
We are very lightweight still, so you will have no problem of building this bike up race ready for the pros within your UCI 6.8 kilogram weight limit. And we've opted not to go lower because that would mean we'd have to sacrifice on, you know, frame surface area, which brings us more aerodynamic potential. Also, you know, it cost us robustness and even comfort. So we've decided to not go lower than necessary, but as low as necessary. So what we've done here is we've done something that's called a sensitivity analysis. So we've built a 100% parametric frame in CAD, which allowed us to tune virtually every aspect of the frame, so radius, sloping, tube width, position, everything basically. And we've ran about 4 million simulation steps, which brought us at the end the best stiffness to weight frame that we could get, which then was handed over to Swiss side. So they did all the aerodynamic optimization for us, but they got started with the best stiffness to weight frame that we could come up with.
That's interesting then. So when they presumably make changes to the cross-section to make it more aero,
Yeah.
they then hand it back to you, and do you then put it back in your...
Yeah, it's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle because the designer fights against the engineer who fights against Swisside, basically. It's again this thought or idea of trying to balance everything out. You know, Swisside, I think for them as well, it was even harder than creating a purely aerodynamic bike because their restrictions were so tight, they couldn't just play around with the frame. We knew how the frame should look like, and they were only allowed to go into details. The details that you don't see on this frame, but that definitely exist.
Okay.
So they've done an amazing job of, you know, making this thing faster in the wind without you actually really, you know, noticing it from the outside.
Give me an example then of something that I won't notice, but yet makes a difference.
So for example, the fork crown, you know, you compare the new fork to the old fork and you see, you know, it's an ultimate fork. I mean, we've increased the tire width that you can run 32 millimeters nominal now, but then the fork has become a lot more aerodynamic than the old one just by the sheer shape of how we, you know, make the surface here on the downside, you know, go up instead of following the tire paths. So it's a lot of subtle details that you don't see, but that are definitely there.
Do you think with this bike we've reached the peak? Have we reached peak bike?
When will we ever reach peak bike? I mean, just looking at it, it's a timeless piece, in my opinion. It's hard to imagine where this will go, but it will go somewhere. So we have not reached peak bike yet, but I don't know where peak bike is.
The overall weight of the top-of-the-range CFR models is very low, and that's because Canyon is able to use a special carbon called M40X. This is a specific product made by Torii, and it's not available or used widely by other brands because it is just so premium. And they've actually used more of it in certain places to actually bolster and strengthen high-stress areas over the previous model, but by using the special carbon and keep the sort of weight down. So particularly around sort of areas like the dropouts and then where the disc brake mounting points are. And according to Canyon, the head tube is now 5.88% stiffer. Anyway, what about the weight? Let's go find the scales. Where are they at? So this is a size medium, and they say it should be 6.2. 6.33, that is proper light. But that makes sense actually, because that's 6.2 without pedals. It's got my Wahoo Speedplay pedals on it. So I reckon that's pretty good, isn't it? 6.3, makes me want to do a hill climb on it now. The more I think about that weight, it's just absolutely insane. But it's thanks in large part to the spec as well. So you've got these outrageous DT Swiss Monchasseral wheels. These are the top of the range lightweight climbing wheels from DT Swiss. They're tubeless. They've got these really nice 240 hubs on there. Actually, quick free hub sound check of those before. Oh, they always sound good. Oh. Yeah, they always sound good. But they're also incredibly light. You've got this outrageous C59 saddle from Sella Italia on there. I mean, you might want a bit more padding for long rides, but really nice, and just 59 grams. And you've got Dura Ace, you know, Di2 12-speed throughout the bike, and these nice proprietary Canyon carbon cages, which look very light, with these very, very smart looking, I've just spotted these, titanium bolts holding them in place. Nice. There's loads of different spec and build options available. So there's 3 frame sets. There's the top of the range CFR we've got here, and then the CF SLX and the CF SL. This is the lightest and the stiffest one. And in this spec, you can see here the top of the range version, it's available for €10,499. But considering what you get and what the competition costs, I think it's actually pretty competitive, especially when you factor in the spec and that it will include for that price a Shimano power meter. It doesn't have a Shimano power meter on this one because this is a pre-release bike. So as for the other specs, well, I've picked out a couple of notable ones. So you can get the frame set below this, the CF SLX, with Ultegra Di2, and that bike weighs 7.14 kilograms, so still very light, and that's €6,499. Or if you go the frame set below that, the CF-SL, you can get that with Ultegra Di2, and it's just 7.48 kilograms. And crucially, it's 4,999 euros. And both of those bikes come with power meters. And as for availability, Canyon says the models will be available to purchase on their website from the 8th of September. So there you have it, the new Canyon Ultimate. Really keen to see what you guys think of this, so let us know your thoughts in the comments section. I mean, I'm a big fan of just the shape of it. It looks like it has the silhouette of a classic road bike, and there aren't many new bikes out there now that retain that silhouette, and I'm a big fan of that. But would you go for this, or would you go for the all-out Canyon Air Road? That's a tough one. I'm not even sure which one I'd pick. That's a hard question. Anyway, let us know what you would down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Love you, bye.